Chapter 291. Get Lost. A few 9th-level Earth Realm prodigies teamed up and blasted at Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen could see that these people were doing it on purpose. They probably wanted to test his ability. It was a pity that these people's cultivation technique rank was too low and was only at the 14th rank. Their cultivation might be one level higher than Li Fuchen, but their combat cultivation was far inferior to Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen burst out with the true Inferno Chi and sent these people flying into the mist. In the next moment, these people vanished. Such a high cultivation technique rank. Someone noticed this scene and couldn't help but be shocked. Combat level consisted of 3 parts. One part was the cultivation level, the other part was the technique rank, and the last part was the Chi Burst secret technique. Li Fuchen's cultivation level might be low, but his technique rank was high. Therefore, his combat level wasn't weak, but was extremely strong. Kid, this year's Stars ranking tournament doesn't have a place for you. You better participate in the next tournament. A vigorous figure pounced at Li Fuchen and blasted a fist at him. It is the previous Stars ranking tournament's 84th ranker, Cheng Wu. Cheng Wu is at the peak level of the Earth Realm and his technique rank is at the 15th rank. I wonder how he is going to resist? The prodigies behind Li Fuchen were sneering in their hearts. Cheng Wu's ability was indeed decent. He might not be comparable to Sword Maniac, Li Xiangru, but he was much stronger than Sword Tiger, Chen Yuanu. A pity that his opponent was Li Fuchen. Executing his movement technique, Li Fuchen's figure instantly vanished and when he reappeared, he was already at the side of Cheng Wu. Not good. Cheng Wu's eyes widened as he extended his left hand from under his right arm, trying to block Li Fuchen's attack. Bang! Li Fuchen sent Cheng Wu flying into the mist with a lightning-fast kick. In a martial artist spar, there were many factors that determined the outcome. To deal with Cheng Wu, Li Fuchen didn't even need to reveal his trump card. He just needed to use his speed to send Cheng Wu flying. Such speed! Those prodigies who originally looked down on Li Fuchen didn't dare to do so anymore. Light body techniques were an extremely important quality. If one's speed couldn't keep up with the opponent, then one could only passively take a beating. Unless one's defense was immune to the opponent's attacks, if one's speed was too slow, one would lose. At the end of the stone stairs was MT Star Fate. At this point, there was no more fog, but correspondingly, the road was not as easy to walk. Looking up, Mount Star Fate towered into the clouds. Its surface was almost completely straight. Some places barely had some protruding rocks to use as leverage, and some places were simply cliffs that were incomparably smooth. How are we supposed to go up like this? Many prodigies sucked in a cold breath. He did not realize it from afar, but when he saw it up close, he realized that it was not easy to climb the mountain. Everyone was at the 9th level of the Earth Realm. Although they didn't possess the Heaven Realm martial artist's ability to fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, they were still able to soar in the sky for a distance. It was just that MT Star Fate had plenty of cliffs and the height was basically above a few thousand meters. No one was able to forcefully fly up. Even a half-step Heaven Realm wouldn't be able to. They had to borrow strength midway. Of course, even though it was a cliff, if one's lightness skill was good, one could still use it as leverage. It all depended on one's own skill. At this moment, what appeared in front of everyone was a cliff that was 3,000 to 4,000 meters high. The cliff was very wide, and it was estimated to stretch for more than 10 miles. If they chose another route, they would waste a lot of time. Let me go first. One of the prodigies who was at the 9th level of the Earth Realm and felt that he had a decent lightness skill soared into the sky. When he reached a height of a few hundred meters, he stomped on the cliff and climbed again. Soon enough, he reached a height of over 1,000 meters and repeated the process. I can't go up anymore. Li Fuchen's eyes were like lightning. He could see that every time this prodigy borrowed strength, the distance would be reduced by half. His final height would probably be around 2,000 meters and it was impossible for him to climb the cliff. As expected, at the 2,300 to 400 meters mark, this prodigy used up all his chi and his body started to descend. It was fortunate that the height of 2,000 meters wasn't enough to make him panic and was just a little pathetic. After landing on the ground, this prodigy decisively chose another route. Some of the less confident prodigies didn't try anymore. When they saw someone failing, they too chose another route. Those that stayed behind were those that were more confident. Let me do it. Another prodigy soared into the sky. This person was at the peak level of the earth realm and had dense chi. Swish, swish, swish. After borrowing strength over a dozen times, this prodigy barely managed to climb up the cliff. Let me do it too. The cliff was very spacious and could accommodate hundreds of people climbing at the same time without being crowded. Li Fuchen saw that the elite prodigies led by thunderous king star Situlei had all started to climb. Situlei was worthy of being the first king star. Not only was his cultivation ridiculously high, but his lightness skill was also amazing. With just one leap, he flew up to 1,000 meters. After 2 or 3 times of borrowing strength, he had already disappeared. The whole process was like a lightning flash. Immovable King Star Qi Heng and Golden Whip King Star Jin Sudong might be slower, but they were also close to 1,000 meters in height. Young Master Flying Sword, Luo Feiyun's lightness skill was comparable to Situlei, but it wasn't as fast as Situlei. Originally, everyone thought that Situlei and Luo Feiyun's lightness skill was formidable enough, but after seeing Tri-Absolute Fairy, Jiang Ruoliu's lightness skill, everyone was speechless. Jiang Ruoliu was like a swan goose, her figure rushed into the sky. Almost no one saw how she borrowed strength and floated up, appearing on the cliff like a fairy descending. Subsequently, Yan Qingwu's lightness skill was also astonishing. Yan Qingwu's cultivation was the same as Li Fuchen's, at the 8th level of the earth realm. She belonged to the bottom of the bottom, but apart from her incredible lightness skill, it seemed like she cultivated an incredible lightness skill. If Jiang Ruoliu was a swan goose, then Yan Qingwu was a swallow. After borrowing strength from the cliff for 3 to 4 times, Yan Qingwu climbed up the cliff with ease. Elite prodigies are indeed elite prodigies. Even Fairy Qingwu, who has the weakest cultivation, is also incredible. Many of them felt inferior in their hearts and felt that as compared to these elite prodigies, their innate potential was too inferior. This Li Fuchen has yet to climb. Could it be that he lacks confidence and is scared? I think so. A 1-star bone frame is ultimately a 1-star bone frame and probably has some limitations. I wonder how he passed the 6th mystic martial door and was accepted as a personal disciple by the 1st mystic martial expert. The mystic martial hidden domain doesn't mean anything. Perhaps he is more suitable for the trials of the mystic martial hidden domain. Everyone had their suspicions towards Li Fuchen, especially after knowing that Li Fuchen's bone frame was only a 1-star bone frame. They weren't convinced and all of them wanted to see Li Fuchen reveal his true self and make a fool of himself. The reason why Li Fuchen was the last one was mainly to see the performance of the others. In terms of light body techniques, Tri-Absolute Fairy, Jiang Ruoliu was undoubtedly the best. Situlei and Luo Feiyun were tied for 2nd place. The others each had their own merits, but Yan Qingwu was still lacking in maturity. Her light body technique was very proficient, but her cultivation level was rather low. It is my turn. Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen circulated the Black Wind 3 clones. He stomped on the ground and soared into the sky. 500 meters. 800 meters. 1,000 meters. 1,200 meters. Below, be it those who were observing or those who were climbing the cliff, all of them were tongue-tied and couldn't say a word. 1,500 meters. This time, Li Fuchen ascended to a height of 1,500 meters, and this wasn't even his limit. He might not have cultivated any Mystic Class high-tier light body technique, but he had already cultivated the Mystic Class mid-tier Black Wind 3 clones to the extremity. The Black Wind 3 clone's intent was already at the completion rank, which allowed him to be like the wind and couldn't feel any resistance at the initial stages. P.S. Apologies, the updates for the past few days are too lousy. It is my fault. Let's not talk about the reason and resume updating. This is the first update. Chapter 292. What level of Qinggong is this? He is only at the 8th level of the Earth Realm. Some prodigies were shocked. 3 Absolute Fairy Jiang Ruoliu's Qinggong is powerful, because she is not only high attainments in Qigong, but also high cultivation base. Among the participants, except for the 3 King Star, only she is a half-step Heavenly Dipper Realm cultivation base. Half-step Heavenly Dipper Realm seemed to be only 1 level higher than Earth Fiend Realm Peak, but in fact, it was like heaven and earth. Half-step Heavenly Dipper Realm, as the name implies, half a foot has already stepped into the Heavenly Dipper Realm. The 3 King Stars and Tri-Absolute Fairy could actually break through to the Heaven Realm, but the 4 of them forcibly suppressed their cultivation. Martial artists at this level not only had high-quality Xianxia, but their mental state had also been elevated to a higher level, allowing them to control their Xianxia with ease. However, cultivation was cultivation, and lightness skill was lightness skill. The two were related, but the main thing was still the attainment of lightness skill. Just like demonic beasts, some rank 3 high-tier demonic beasts might not be as fast as rank 3 mid-tier demonic beasts. One must know that the former's demonic aura would definitely surpass the latter's. After breaking through the Black Wind 3 clones to the completion rank, Li Fuchen was able to use 10% of his strength to burst out with 10% of his strength, just like this class 3 mid-tier demonic beast. Climbing to a height of 1,500 meters, Li Fuchen jumped, drew an arc, and gently stepped on the cliff. At the moment of borrowing strength, Li Fuchen took the opportunity to take a breath of true spirit and then rushed into the sky again. With just 2 leaps, Li Fuchen ascended the cliff with ease and elegance. This kid's movement technique is like a ghost. He doesn't seem to be that simple. Everyone's eyes flickered. If Li Fuchen had a 5-star bone frame, they wouldn't have belittled him. But Li Fuchen's 1-star bone frame was too ridiculous. Subconsciously, none of them took Li Fuchen seriously. As for Li Fuchen's results in the mystic martial hidden domain, they didn't think much of it. The path of the martial Dao had limitless possibilities, and the mystic martial hidden domain was just one of the more important possibilities. So, there were no demonic beasts on MT Star Fate, but there were extremely aggressive plants. These plants usually had long vines, and if they weren't careful, some geniuses would be sent flying by the vines, sustaining heavy injuries. Some geniuses would be bound by the vines, unable to move. In addition, everyone realized that the higher they went up MT Star Fate, the stronger the gravity, and the lower the height they could fly. Piu. The vines were cut down one by one. Li Fuchen ascended the mountain as though there was no one around. Rumble! All of a sudden, the ground below split open as a giant flower bud bloomed and enveloped Li Fuchen. Rise! Li Fuchen didn't want to be entangled. He extended his body and skimmed into the sky while the flower bud chased closely behind. But the flower bud stem was limited in length and couldn't catch up to Li Fuchen. Although MT Star Fate isn't dangerous, there are many obstacles. Li Fuchen saw a prodigy being wrapped by the flower bud. He didn't die but fainted instead, as though he was inflicted with some hallucinogenic poison. If there were no accidents, by the time he woke up, the first phase of the star's ranking tournament would have already ended. Such strong gravity. The height of MT Star Fate was at least a few tens of thousands of meters. At the halfway point of the mountain, the gravity increased by at least 10 times. Li Fuchen could only soar over 100 meters in the air, and his speed was greatly reduced. A height of over 100 meters would require a few breaths to reach. In this way, it would be even more difficult to dodge the plant's attacks. The overwhelming vines surged over in a frenzy. Li Fuchen drew the Mystic Class high-tier artifact sword, the black light sword that was bestowed by the sect patriarch, and slashed. Blaze Devil Killer Shadow. The scarlet red shadow was like a giant red cover that enveloped the vines. In the next moment, the vines were sliced into pieces. As the finishing move of the Blaze Devil Sword art, even if Li Fuchen didn't activate the secret technique, the burst of lethality was still extremely terrifying. His ability? A few hundred meters away, behind the strange boulder, Qin Keishi had a shocked expression. Back when she hosted the Autumn Rain Tea Party, Li Fuchen was only slightly superior to Xiao Bai and Ruan Qianqiu. It had only been a short period of time and Li Fuchen's strength had already reached such a horrific level. Furthermore, She could see that Li Fuchen didn't use his full strength and was merely executing a casual sword move. Everyone has underestimated him. In terms of ability, he is probably at least top 20 or even higher. Qin Keishi thought to herself. 1 hour later, Li Fuchen was already deep into the clouds and wasn't far from the peak of the mountain. At this moment, there were more chances for everyone to meet. It's you! Not far away, Han Feng saw Li Fuchen. Han Feng's luck was rather good as the route he chose was very smooth and there weren't that many plants. So what if it is me? Li Fuchen glanced at Han Feng. Han Feng's cultivation was only at the 9th level of the Earth Realm and was only 1 level higher than him. Arrogant. Even if you were accepted as a personal disciple by the first mystic martial expert, you might not be ranked among the elite prodigies. Get lost. Han Feng had never crossed moves with Li Fuchen before, hence he didn't think that Li Fuchen was very formidable. Back at the Star Road hidden domain, Li Fuchen was still avoiding him and chose to escape. Wearing the silver brass knuckles, Han Feng suddenly blasted a fist at Li Fuchen. The silver radiance was like a starry sky that was flickering. Mystic class mid-tier kill move. Starry sky strike. Seeking your own death. Even during his first attempt at the Star Road hidden domain, Li Fuchen's ability might not be inferior to Han Feng, but he wasn't willing to engage in a meaningless battle. After 2 years, Li Fuchen's ability had advanced by leaps and bounds and he no longer placed prodigies like Han Feng in his eyes. In his eyes, only those top geniuses were worthy of his attention. Seeing Han Feng make a move, Li Fuchen's chi burst out from his body. The true Inferno technique and mystical dragon secret technique were circulated at the same time. Immediately after, his second mystic class mid-tier kill move was executed. Boom! The air trembled and the mountain rocks crumbled. The silver starry sky completely crumbled while Han Feng vomited fresh blood and was sent flying. Han Feng was defeated in a single move. To be serious, Han Feng's innate potential wasn't inferior to sword maniac Li Xiangru. But his cultivation time wasn't as long as Li Xiangru's and he didn't even comprehend a mystic class high-tier sword intent. How was he going to withstand Li Fuchen's sword? The defeated Han Feng's eyes were dazed as he stared at Li Fuchen in disbelief. Frog at the bottom of the well. Even if you are one of the Celestial 7, you don't have the qualifications to look down on me. Li Fuchen drifted away. He didn't have a need and didn't intend to kill Han Feng. He didn't know when the mystic martial experts would leave and it was better to provoke fewer enemies. With a flash, Li Fuchen arrived at the peak of the mountain. The peak of the mountain was rather spacious and had a radius of a few thousand meters. In the center of the peak, there was a simple and unadorned circular platform. Surrounding the circular platform were 108 stone pillars and the surface of the stone pillars were shrouded with a yellow chi flow. Right now, there were already over 20 individuals standing on the stone pillars. Each of them looked down from above and had an extraordinary aura. Leaping into the sky, Li Fuchen landed on one of the stone pillars. The stone pillars were known as the Heaven Dipper stone pillars and the yellow chi flow was the Heaven Dipper battle chi. It was extremely beneficial for Heaven realm martial artists to cultivate. But standing on it didn't mean that one would obtain the Heaven Dipper battle chi. One had to make it to the top 36 of the stars ranking in order to obtain the Heaven Dipper battle chi. Swish. A figure followed closely behind and appeared on the Heaven Dipper stone pillar beside Li Fuchen. It was Yan Qingwu. Chapter 293. Figures after figures arrived at the peak of the mountain. In just a short moment, 90% of the 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars were filled with people. Swish, swish, swish. More people arrived at the peak of the mountain and when they saw the few Heaven Dipper stone pillars, they went crazy. They soared into the sky and wanted to snatch one of the unoccupied Heaven Dipper stone pillars. Get lost. During the process of contesting for the Heaven Dipper stone pillars, it was inevitable that there would be fights. Everyone knew clearly that the earlier one stood on the Heaven Dipper stone pillars, the earlier they would be at ease. Once the Heaven Dipper stone pillars were filled with people, they would be considered to have entered the stars ranking. If this dragged on, more people would come to contest for the Heaven Dipper stone pillars. Among the crowd, Li Fuchen saw Li Xiangru, Chen Yuanhu, and Shuefeng. After spending a lot of effort, Li Xiangru obtained a Heaven Dipper Stone Pillar. But Chen Yuanhu and Shuefeng couldn't even get close to the Heaven Dipper Stone Pillar and would always be repelled or obstructed by others. Bang! A palm print penetrated Shuefeng's chi protection and slammed heavily on Shuefeng's chest. In the next moment, Shuefeng was sent flying while vomiting blood. I want this Heaven Dipper Stone Pillar. A figure landed on the Heaven Dipper Stone Pillar. Don't even think about it. 3 or 4 figures pounced at the opposition. Get lost. The figure looked as though he had 3 heads and 6 arms as he slammed out layers of palm prints. P. These 3 or 4 figures came and left quickly. All of them vomited blood and were sent flying without any suspense. It is the previous star's ranking's 44th ranker, Wang Exin. No wonder he is ranked 44th on the star's ranking. His ability far exceeds us. Let's not contest with him. If it was someone ranked 70th or 80th on the star's ranking, they wouldn't be fearful. In fact, many of the lower-ranked stars' ranking bigwigs had already been defeated. Furthermore, the ones who defeated them were all rising stars that weren't listed on the star's ranking. But the top 50 rankers of the star's ranking had overwhelming ability and it wasn't easy to defeat them. Rather than tiring themselves to death without any gains, they might as well contest for the other Heaven Dipper Stone Pillars. Ruan Qianxiu and Xiao Bai, who were once defeated by Li Fuchen, were furious. They were the previous star's ranking bigwigs and originally thought that ascending the Heaven Dipper Stone Pillars would be easy. But a rising star suddenly appeared and forcefully struck the two of them until they vomited blood and couldn't even get close. Damn. Ruan Qianxiu's face turned dark, and so did Xiao Bai. What was different from Ruan Qianxiu and Xiao Bai was that Qin Keishi managed to obtain a Heavenly Dipper Stone Pillar. Qin Keishi's archenemy, the divine whip devil girl, Tang Shiqi, also managed to obtain one. The two of them had rather good innate potential, unlike Ruan Qianxiu and Xiao Bai, who had the strength of the stars ranking in the previous tournament, but it might not be the case for this tournament. Of course, even if he managed to get his hands on the Heavenly Dipper Stone Pillars, he might not be able to keep them. As long as the Heavenly Dipper Stone Pillars weren't full of people, they could snatch any one of them. Ruan Qianxiu and Xiao Bai's strength is probably inferior to Sword Tiger, Chen Yuanhu. It is basically impossible for them to enter the star's ranking. Standing on the Heaven Dipper Stone Pillar, Li Fuchen shook his head. The star's ranking had a lot of changes every session. In the previous star's ranking, it was already very good to have more than half of the people in the star's ranking. Of course, this was mainly because many of the previous star's ranking bigwigs had advanced to the Heaven Realm. After all, if he didn't advance, he wouldn't be able to defeat the 3 king stars and the others. He might as well advance first. Unknowingly, 300 to 400 people had gathered at the top of the mountain. Xiaoshi was the last batch of people to ascend the mountain peak. He had bad luck as the route he chose was filled with aggressive plants. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken so long to ascend. Bang, 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 bang. How formidable was Xiaoxi's ability? Among the rising stars, he was definitely one of the best or second best. After all, he had a heaven-defying 5-star bone frame. Soaring into the sky, Xiaoxi was just like a vicious beast as he rampaged his way through. There weren't many who could withstand a single fist from him. They were all severely injured by a single fist and were sent flying like rice straws. It's Xiaoxi. Hurry up and retreat. Xiaoxi had a notorious reputation and everyone knew that he was a ferocious individual. Among the battle spirit 10 greats, he was only inferior to Xiahou Chuan. Occupying one of the Heaven Dipper Stone Pillars, Xiaoxi stood with his hands behind his back and had a cold expression. Many of the prodigies from the surrounding sects retreated after hearing the news. Huff, huff, huff. In the sky above, patches of black shadows appeared. No matter how tall MT Star Fate was, it wouldn't be able to block the descent of Reincarnation Realm martial artists. Of course, this was mainly because MT Star Fate was already activated. When MT Star Fate was in a closed state, even Reincarnation Realm martial artists wouldn't be able to ascend it. Otherwise, they would suffer from the chi presence of the entire MT Star Fate. If it was light, they would suffer severe injuries. If it was heavy, they would perish. It wasn't a joke. The various sects' reincarnation realm martial artists brought along some of their prodigies and descended from the sky. They were observing from afar, including the Azure Water sects Ouyang Wenian and the others. Fuchen and Xiangru each obtained one of the Heaven-dipper stone pillars. Zhao Wujin's eyes were like lightning. When he saw Li Fuchen and Li Xiangru on the Heaven-dipper stone pillars, he couldn't help but let out a smile. Ouyang Wenian nodded and said, Qin Yuanhu and Xue Feng are still lacking. Whether they can ultimately stand on the Heaven-dipper stone pillars will depend on their luck. Snatching the Heaven-dipper stone pillars also required luck. If the instant you stood on it, all the Heaven-dipper stone pillars happened to be occupied, then the 108 Heaven-dipper stone pillars would form the Heaven-dipper Great Array, preventing others from continuing to snatch the Heaven-dipper stone pillars, repelling them. But those with true ability didn't need luck. Like the 3 king stars, the 6 young masters, the 4 fairies Tri-Absolute Fairy and Wind Snow Fairy. Anyone who dared to contest for the Heaven-dipper stone pillars would be courting death. No one would be foolish enough to rush forward. But it was obvious that Su Muyu and Yan Qinggu weren't in this group. The two of them might be elite prodigies, but they were still young and there would always be people who couldn't help but test them. Get lost. The sickle in Su Muyu's hand was like a scythe that was harvesting straws. In just a short moment, she swept 3 to 4 individuals. The ability that she displayed was superior to Xiahou Shi. Yan Qingwu's ability was extraordinary too. With a flash of her curved saber, the saber light was as swift as a swallow. She easily cleaved one of the individuals and with a shake of her body, multiple figures appeared at the same time to send the other 2 individuals flying. The ability that she displayed was at least mid-tier in the stars ranking. Get this kid down. There were 300 to 400 individuals on the peak of the mountain. 100 of them were standing on the Heaven-dipper stone pillars, while the remaining 200 would change their targets from time to time. Li Fuchen was undoubtedly one of the targets. Not good, Li Fuchen is being targeted. Zhao Mingyue held her breath. There were too many prodigies on the peak of the mountain. Even if she was rather confident in Li Fuchen, she didn't have much confidence in her heart. Zhao Wujin, Ouyang Wenin, and the others frowned and observed quietly. Kid, hurry up and get down. There were a total of 5 figures skimming towards Li Fuchen and 2 of them were the previous stars rankers. Li Fuchen drew his sword and executed his first mystic class mid-tier kill move, Sword Flow. 10 sword lights burst forth. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. As the sword lights crisscrossed, the 5 of them burst out with blood and fell from the sky. It seems like we were worried for nothing. Seeing how Li Fuchen resolved the crisis with such ease, Zhao Wujin laughed heartily. Let's risk it all. Everyone attacked together. Seeing that there were more and more individuals on the Heaven-dipper stone pillars, everyone was getting anxious. Previously, it was just a chaotic fight for the Heaven-dipper stone pillars, but now, it had turned into a dozen individuals attacking one of the Heaven-dipper stone pillars, vowing to take down one individual. Chapter 294. Li Fuchen's side was also in a frenzy. It was unknown if someone had instigated it, but over a dozen prodigies from the various sects had teamed up to attack Li Fuchen. If Li Fuchen couldn't withstand the joint attack of over a dozen prodigies, he would definitely be severely injured. What's the use of having more people? Activating the primary clear hand, Li Fuchen executed the first mystic class mid-tier kill move, Sword Flow. This time, there were dozens of sword lights. Pu. At Li Fuchen's level, the suppression of the lower class prodigies was too obvious. A single sword was enough to injure over a dozen prodigies and cause them to bleed profusely. Li Fuchen didn't even use his true strength, otherwise, a single sword would have been enough to kill a dozen of them. Who else? Li Fuchen swept a glance at the restless group of people in the distance. I Yunyu will fight you. A figure reached the top of the mountain. It was an extremely muscular young man. It is the previous star's rankings 48th ranker, Yunyu. He actually just reached the peak of the mountain. Yunyu isn't proficient in light body techniques, but his body refinement technique is incredible. In the star's ranking, he is at least top 10. Someone recognized the identity of the newcomer. Yunyu had just reached the peak of the mountain. Apart from not being proficient in light body techniques, it was mainly due to his bad luck, as he had chosen a route that was fraught with difficulties. After all, as a star's ranker, no matter how bad his light body technique was, he wouldn't be ranked below 300th or 400th. He didn't have any enmity with Li Fuchen, but he wasn't used to seeing Li Fuchen's dominance when fighting against multiple opponents. He wanted to test Li Fuchen's strength. Like a ferocious beast, Yunyu stomped on the ground and shot towards Li Fuchen in a slanted manner. Overturning mountain chop. In the air, Yunyu gripped a giant axe with both hands. He raised it high and swung it down forcefully. In an instant, a raging wind blew, and the phantom of a mountain appeared, accompanied by a snow-white waterfall. No wonder he is ranked 48th in the previous star's ranking. Many people were shocked. Sword explosion. Li Fuchen was expressionless as he thrusted with the black light sword. Layers of sword shadows pressed forward in a frenzy before exploding. Rumble. A transparent air ripple spread out while Yunyu was sent flying. Li Fuchen stood on the Heaven Dipper stone pillar and didn't move an inch. Alright again. Yunyu's eyes flickered. Li Fuchen's sword move wasn't just exquisite and tyrannical, it was also targeted at the flaw of his kill move. Otherwise, it was impossible to force him to retreat. Stomping on the ground, Yunyu rushed at Li Fuchen again. This time, Yunyu's body was glowing with a copper glow, as though he had turned into a copper statue, giving off an unparalleled pressure. Profound class high-rank body refining technique, and he has grasped the body refining true meaning. Li Fuchen's pupils shrank. This was the first time he had seen such a brilliant body tempering technique. Body refinement techniques were different from other martial arts. It was extremely difficult to grasp the true meaning, even more so than chi cultivation techniques. However, once one grasped true intent, one's defense would increase greatly. Martial artists of the same level would not even be able to break through the opponent's defense. In addition, once one grasped the true meaning of a body-refining cultivation technique, one's strength would also increase greatly. According to what Li Fuchen knew, only one of the three king stars, the immovable king star, Qi Heng, had comprehended a mystic-class high-tier body refinement intent. Of course, he had branded tool patterns on his body and his defenses were far superior to Yunyu. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called the immovable king star. Yunyu's body refinement proficiency is almost in the top 5. The immovable king star, Qi Heng, was rather interested. When facing the valiant Yunyu, apart from the initial surprise, Li Fuchen didn't have any other expression. Executing the Blaze Devil Sword art, a layer of scarlet light gathered on the black light sword. Clang. When the sword and axe clashed, Yunyu's palm burst with fresh blood and the giant axe flew out of his hand. Not good. Yunyu was appalled. In the next moment, Li Fuchen's sword slashed open Yunyu's chest. In order to break the mystic class high-tier body refinement intent, one had to grasp the mystic class high-tier martial art intent. In comparison, the sword art intent was undoubtedly the most lethal. When facing Li Fuchen's Blaze Devil Sword intent, Yunyu couldn't defend at all. Mystic class high-tier sword intent. Interesting. Young Master Dragon Sword, Chiyuye looked over. When he noticed that Li Fuchen had grasped the mystic class high-tier sword intent, his eyes flickered. From what he knew, there weren't many people who had grasped the mystic class high-tier sword intent. Adding them up, it probably didn't exceed the fingers on one hand. I am not a match for you. Yunyu quickly retreated while the sword wound on his chest gradually closed up, but a sword scar was left behind. He had just grasped the mystic class high-tier body refinement intent for a short period of time and was considered to be at the initial stage of the intent. Li Fuchen's mystic class high-tier sword intent was obviously at a higher level of attainment. But what he couldn't understand was that he was at the peak level of the Earth Realm while Li Fuchen was at the 8th level of the Earth Realm. Logically, even if it was a mystic class high-tier sword intent, it would be hard to injure him. After all, there was still a gap in cultivation level. How could he know that Li Fuchen's awareness was extremely astounding? This sword strike was aimed at the Qi protection's flaw. Everything in the world had its flaws, And so did the protective Zhenqi. Of course, even without the astounding awareness, Li Fuchen was still able to break Yun Yu's defense. His Blaze Devil Sword intent was already at the completion rank, and it was still possible to break Yun Yu's defense. With Yun Yu's previous example, no one dared to provoke Li Fuchen anymore. It didn't matter if everyone admitted it or not, Li Fuchen already had the strength to rank at the top of the stars ranking. Fuchen's sword intent is getting sharper. Zhao Wujin lamented. He had practically witnessed Li Fuchen's current achievement from the origin realm. Therefore, he knew how terrifying Li Fuchen's improvement was. With Yun Yu's ability, it was still easy for him to snatch one of the Heaven Dipper stone pillars. With his defense, even if a dozen prodigies worked together, they wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The Heaven Dipper stone pillars changed owners time and time again. There was a time when there were 107 individuals standing on the stone pillars, but it was a pity that it was all for naught and there weren't even 108 individuals. Unknowingly, 1 hour had passed. Get lost. A figure broke out of the encirclement and landed on the Heaven Dipper stone pillar. Rumble. The 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars shook in unison. Immediately after, the yellow chi flow that lingered on the surface of the Heaven Dipper stone pillars surged and interconnected, repelling everyone else. Damn it. Some of the prodigies that weren't able to stand on the Heaven Dipper stone pillars had a change in expression as they were unresigned. The Heaven Dipper Great Array was activated. At this moment, the 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars and the circular stage in the center had formed a world. Not even Reincarnation Realm martial artists would be able to interfere. If they forcefully interfered, they would be attacked by the Heaven Dipper Great Array and would instantly perish. All right. Ouyang Wenyan and the others let out a breath of relief. This was the first time in the history of the Azure Water sect that 2 individuals entered the stars ranking. It was a known fact that 30% of the sects didn't even have a single disciple in the stars ranking. Apart from the Azure Water sect and the top 10 elite sects, the rest of the sects didn't have more than a handful of disciples. The Violent Saber sect and the Spirit Hidden sect didn't have any disciples in the stars ranking. I wonder how the stars ranking tournament is going to be conducted? Li Fuchen looked at the 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars and the circular stage in the center with a curious expression. The stars ranking tournament didn't have any judges and Li Fuchen didn't specifically ask around, hence he didn't know about the details. Rumble. Just as Li Fuchen was thinking about it, 2 of the 108 Heaven Dipper stone pillars sank. Immediately after, the prodigies that were standing on the 2 pillars leaped onto the circular stage. So that's how it is. Chapter 295. All the prodigies from the sects that were listed on the rankings were all formidable. If they were in the previous tournament, they would at least be in the top 70 or 80. On the round stage, chi forces were crisscrossing and weapons clashing. When the victor was decided, the Heaven Dipper stone pillar that the loser was standing on suddenly split off a portion of Heaven Dipper battle chi and converged on the winner's stone pillar. Each Heaven Dipper stone pillar has a limited amount of Heaven Dipper battle chi. After losing a certain number of matches, the Heaven Dipper battle chi would disappear. No wonder only the top 36 would be able to obtain the Heaven Dipper battle chi. Seeing this scene, Li Fuchen understood. For the second match, it was the Golden Whip King star, Jin Sudong. His opponent wasn't weak and could be considered extremely formidable. It was Lu Xiangdong who was ranked 42nd in the previous tournament. Swish. The weapon in Jin Sudong's hand was a golden iron whip that was 3 meters long. It had a total of 108 segments, making it look like a golden spine. As it lashed out, a powerful golden light erupted from the round platform. A terrifying whip intent burst forth, directly sending Lu Xiangdong flying. His chest had caved in, and he was heavily injured and on the verge of death. Such strength! Everyone was shocked. How reckless! He didn't admit defeat against Jin Sudong. He is probably trying to test Jin Sudong's ability. Everyone was in a heated discussion. Turning around coldly, Jin Sudong skimmed onto the Heaven Dipper stone pillar. As for the severely injured Lu Xiangdong, he was enveloped by a ray of light and was rapidly recovering. Lu Xiangdong had a horrified expression. After 3 years, he thought that he had improved a lot. He might not be a match for Jin Sudong, but he still wanted to try. He didn't expect to be defeated so miserably and cleanly. Taking a deep breath, Lu Xiangdong stomped on the stage and skimmed back to the Heaven Dipper stone pillar. In the next moment, the Heaven Dipper stone pillar beneath his feet split off a portion of Heaven Dipper battle chi which fused into the Heaven Dipper stone pillar beneath Jin Sudong's feet. So this is the half-step heaven realm? Li Fuchen frowned. Jin Sudong didn't execute any secret techniques and his whip art was only a mystic class, mid-tier whip art. But the ranked 42nd Lu Xiangdong still couldn't withstand a single whip from Jin Sudong. Had it not been for the Heaven Dipper Great Array's healing, there was a high possibility of death. Li Xiangru's match was in the 4th match. His opponent was a rising star, but this rising star was extremely strong. The two of them exchanged over 100 moves before Li Xiangru defeated his opponent. For the 5th match, Yan Qingwu's opponent was Yunyu. Yan Fei Wu. Executing the 3-star secret art, Swallow Flight Dance, Yan Qingwu's figure suddenly split into multiple figures, causing Yunyu's vision to blur. It was impossible for him to capture Yan Qingwu's true body. Clang 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 clang, numerous blade lights slashed at Yunyu's body, creating countless sparks. "You can't hurt me!" Yunyu roared. With a sweep of his giant axe, he destroyed all of Yan Qingwu's doppelgangers. Not necessarily. Yan Qingwu frowned and activated the 4-star secret technique, Flying Swallow Slash. The speed of the scimitar in her hand increased exponentially, and the image of a swallow appeared on it. Blood splattered everywhere as Yunyu was injured by the saber. Pu piu piu piu. After that, Yunyu fell into a predicament. Saber scars covered his body. "I admit defeat." With a bitter smile, Yunyu took the initiative to admit defeat. The opponent's blade speed was too fast. The super fast speed gave the blade technique super lethality. I really don't know how the opponent reached such a level at such a young age. It was really infuriating to compare people. The 7th match, Young Master Dragon Sword, Qiyuye against Wang Exin. In the previous Stars List Great Competition, Qiyuye was ranked 28th and Wang Exin was ranked 44th. Logically, the gap wasn't big. Wang Exin thought so too. "You don't admit defeat?" Qiyuye looked at Wang Exin. Wang Exin said confidently, "Why should I admit defeat?" Even if he couldn't beat Qiyuye, he didn't need to admit defeat. This Qiyuye wasn't the 3 King Stars. If it was the 3 King Stars, he would most likely admit defeat. "I hope you don't regret it," Qiyuye said indifferently. "Take my palm first." Wang Exin's figure soared. A pair of big hands slapped Qiyuye for dozens of palms. Between each palm, there was no gap, and finally formed a huge palm, slapping towards Qiyuye. Annoying flies, split. Qiyuye took out the sword, the golden sword, and the dazzling golden sword light, like a dragon claw, tore the huge palm, and then ran through Wang Exin's body. Blood mist filled the air. Wang Exin screamed and fell onto the round table. The injury was very serious, and there were 5 bloody holes in the body, which were the size of the bowl mouth. Qiyuye didn't look at Wang Exin, tiptoe on the ground, back to the Heavenly Dipper stone pillar. Wang Exin, who had finished the treatment, was like seeing a ghost, and his eyes were round. He felt that Qiyuye's strength was not inferior to Golden Whip King star Jin Sudong, because he thought that his strength would not be inferior to Lu Xiangdong, and even felt that he was slightly better than him. Young Master Dragon Sword, Qiyuye, is worthy of Heavenly Dragon Sword sects Sword Dao Genius. In 3 years, he has grown to such a point. Does he intend to compete with the 3 King Stars? Most of the time, 6 young masters, 4 fairies, which goal is not the 3 King Stars. I don't know what level the strength of other young masters and fairies has reached. Seeing Qiyuye's strength, everyone looked forward to the strength of other elite heavens chosen. In 3 years, there were too many unknown factors. The previous Stars List ranking at this moment was completely useless and could not be used as a reference. Of course, except for the 3 King Stars. The 10th match wins Snow Fairy Su Lin. On the round table, Wind Snow Fairy didn't even need to make a move, chi burst, and a majestic cold chi presence enveloped the opponent. I admit defeat. The opponent was shivering, and it wasn't just the cold body, but more of the cold spirit will. In the 15th match, young Master Celestial Star Murongdi's opponent seemed to feel that he was too weak and directly admitted defeat. In the 17th match, young Master Dolin, Xiahou Chuan's opponent admitted defeat. In the 20th match, young Master Flying Sword, Luo Feiyun's opponent admitted defeat. In the 24th match, the Heavenly Dipper stone pillar under Li Fuchen's feet sank and the height dropped by half. Is it my turn? Li Fuchen's figure flashed and landed on the round table. Lifting his eyes, Li Fuchen looked at the opposite side. The opposite side fell a tall figure. The chi presence surged. It is one of the Dolin clan's Dolin 10 greats, Xiahou Hai. Xiahou Hai's innate potential might not be comparable with Xiahou Chuan and Xiahou Shi, but with his age, he is ranked 39th in the previous Stars ranking tournament. This is going to be a good show. Everyone looked at the round table with curiosity. They wanted to see what level Li Fuchen's ability had reached. Kid, are you still not going to admit defeat? Xiahou Hai grinned and sneered. He was ranked 39th in the previous tournament. He was confident that he could rank top 30 in this tournament. He didn't even put a mere Li Fuchen in his eyes, even if Li Fuchen's reputation had been spreading for the past year. With just you? Li Fuchen said. With just me, Mountain Cleaving Claw. Xiahou Hai's hands were equipped with steel claws. Both of his hands were crisscrossing and clawing, forming a giant net that enveloped Li Fuchen. The black light sword in Li Fuchen's hand was glowing in scarlet light and extended a giant scarlet sword dipper. With a sweep of the sword dipper, the giant net was cleanly broken and the remaining force crushed at Xiahou Hai. Minor Battle Spirit Art, activate. Chapter 296. The Minor Battle Spirit Art was a 4-star secret art. It could transform the true chi within a martial artist's body into the even more powerful Minor Battle Spirit True Chi. After many years of cultivation, Xiahou Hai had already comprehended the Minor Battle Spirit Art to the Great Completion Realm. This was also the trump card he relied on. Right now, after activating the Minor Battle Spirit Art, Xiahou Hai, who was originally at the peak stage of the Earth Realm, had a combat cultivation that was comparable to the half-step Heaven Realm. If it wasn't for the fact that he had yet to comprehend a Mystic-class high-tier martial art intent, it was highly possible for him to be ranked top 20 in this year's Stars ranking. Mountain Splitting Claw. He released another Mystic-class mid-tier kill move. The claw light that was the size of a house contained a layer of yellow light and clawed at Li Fuchen. The power of this attack was far beyond Lu Xiangdong and Wang Exin. Many of the people were sweating for Li Fuchen. When facing Xiahou Hai's all-out attack, Li Fuchen didn't plan to activate the 4-star secret technique, Pure Yang Dipper Chi. He continued to use the 3-star secret technique, Primary Clear Hand and Blaze Devil Sword Art. The scarlet red sword dipper extended and contracted. In Li Fuchen's eyes, Xiahou Hai's mountain-splitting claw was filled with flaws. Sword energy. It was the will of sword chi. It was almost the same as genuine Qi Gang. Usually, only Mystic-class high-tier sword techniques could release sword energy. Of course, this did not mean that the astral sword was more powerful than the sword Qi. It could only be said that the form was different. Some sword techniques' astral sword was more powerful, while some sword techniques' sword Qi was more powerful. Moreover, the astral sword's killing range was much smaller than the sword Qi. When the distance was close, the astral sword's power was indeed greater than the sword Qi's. Flame Devil Inquisition. In the void, crimson light intertwined, and the house-sized claw light was directly disintegrated. In Li Fuchen's eyes, Xiahou Hai's claw was purely powerful and didn't have any subtlety. Perhaps when fighting against others, this claw would not be a problem. But when fighting against Li Fuchen, this claw was a huge problem. The less refined the move, the bigger the flaw. Li Fuchen was able to use the least amount of energy to break this move. But only Li Fuchen can do it, amazing awareness so that he can easily see the flaws of moves, eyesight. He and Shedding Body Realm martial artist are no different, that is, the body reaction is not as good as Shedding Body Realm martial artist. After breaking Xiahou Hai's kill move, Li Fuchen thrust his black light sword forward. A scarlet-red sword dipper swept out like a venomous snake. This was one of the Flaming Devil Sword style's moves, the Flaming Snake's Tongue. Xiahou Hai's protective Zhenqi was pierced through. He lowered his head in disbelief. Unknowingly, his chest had also been pierced through, and smoke was rising from it. I lost. Xiahou Hai was still in a daze. Activating the Little Dipper spirit art, his cultivation base was comparable to the half-step Heavenly Dipper realm, even if the martial art true meaning level was not high enough, but the combat cultivation base was enough to make up for or even surpass this disadvantage. But why was he defeated so miserably? His every move seemed to be completely seen through by the other party. Even Xiahou Hai was defeated. This Li Fuchen must not be underestimated. Indeed. I reckon that apart from the majority of the elite prodigies, if anyone else wants to go against him, they would need to be at least in the top 30 of the previous star's ranking. Li Fuchen defeating Xiahou Hai might have surprised everyone, but it wasn't too shocking. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow, and Li Fuchen's reputation was rather resounding. Previously, he even injured the 48th ranked Yunyu in a single blade. To be able to defeat Xiahou Hai, you do have some ability. Xiahou Shi's expression was somewhat gloomy when he saw this scene. Xiahou Hai's innate potential might not be as good as his, but his ability wasn't weak. Even he wouldn't be able to defeat Xiahou Hai casually. But he was planning to hunt Li Fuchen and plunder Li Fuchen's chi fate. If Li Fuchen was too strong, the chances of him hunting Li Fuchen would be much smaller, and this wasn't something he wanted to see. The thunderous King Star, Sidulei, took another glance at Li Fuchen. How could he not see that Li Fuchen's awareness was exceptional? If it was anyone else, even if their ability was similar to Li Fuchen, they wouldn't be able to defeat Xiahou Hai so easily. After defeating Xiahou Hai, the Heaven Dipper stone pillar beneath Li Fuchen's feet had an additional streak of Heaven Dipper battle chi, making it even more vigorous. I wonder what level the Heaven Dipper battle chi will reach after condensing 107 individuals' Heaven Dipper battle chi. Li Fuchen thought to himself. In the 28th match, the immovable King Star, Qi Heng appeared and his opponent admitted defeat. In the 33rd match, the thunderous King Star, Sidulei appeared and his opponent didn't admit defeat. Because his opponent was the 20th ranked Zhao Qi in the previous star's ranking tournament. Sidulei, I know I am not a match for you. But I would like to know what level your current ability is at. On the round stage, Zhao Qi spoke slowly. Sidulei laughed. You are still unable to force me to reveal my true ability. No matter what, I want to try. Zhao Qi made his move. The spear in his hand was like a venomous dragon emerging from the sea as it burrowed towards Sidulei. The violent spinning force caused Zhao Qi's entire body to be engulfed in a horizontal tornado. It was an extremely imposing sight. Sidulei clenched his right fist and struck out with a casual punch. Boom! The tornado crumbled and the spear in Zhao Qi's hand was bent into a bow shape. With a pfff sound, Zhao Qi vomited fresh blood and was sent flying. A single punch and Zhao Qi was defeated. Seeing this scene, everyone stared at Sidulei in horror. Too strong. The 20th ranked Zhao Qi in the previous star's ranking tournament couldn't even withstand a single punch from Sidulei. Even the mystic class high-tier weapon in his hand was bent. What kind of fist force was this? Very strong. This year's star's ranking tournament's first rank is probably still him. Zhao Wujin sighed. Ouyang Wendian nodded. This child's innate potential is top-notch and he is already of age. It won't be an easy task to contest against him. The Thunder God sect's Reincarnation Realm experts had smiles on their faces. In the previous star's ranking tournament, Sidulei was the first rank. If he could obtain the first rank again this time, the accumulated Heaven Dipper battle chi would be astounding. Perhaps, once he stepped into the Heaven Realm, he would be able to break through 3 levels and reach the 4th level of Heaven Realm. Apart from that, if the legendary star fate really existed, it would definitely affect the Thunder God sect's fate. By then, the Thunder God sect's status would be even more stable and no one would be able to shake it. In the 38th match, Young Master Gale, Han Yiming against Qin Keishi. Han Yiming won. In the 42nd match, Young Master Eternal Spring, Teng Qingyun won. In the 45th match, Tri-Absolute Fairy, Jiang Ruoliu won. In the 48th match, Fairy Muyu, Su Muyu won. The tournament progressed very quickly, and in just a short moment, Li Fuchen was on stage again. This time, his opponent was very weak and had immediately conceded. Correspondingly, the Heaven Dipper battle chi on the Heaven Dipper stone pillar under Li Fuchen's feet was being nurtured. 3, 4, 5, time elapsed quickly. Unknowingly, Li Fuchen had already won 9 matches in a row. The Heaven Dipper battle chi below him was vaguely revealing its prowess. It was like a giant snake that had a trace of spirituality. At this moment, the strong and the weak had already been revealed. Apart from the 13 elite prodigies, the most prominent ones were undoubtedly Xiahou Shi, Li Fuchen, and 2 other equally dazzling youths. As of now, the 4 of them had maintained their winning streak. They were known as the 4 dark horses of this year's Stars ranking tournament, or in other words, the 4 reserve elite prodigies. Chapter 297. Sun Hailong was at the 9th level of the Earth Realm. He had grasped a mystic-class high-tier martial art intent and even cultivated a 4-star secret technique. In the previous match, he defeated Wu Hai, who was ranked 30th on the Stars ranking. His strength was truly astonishing. In everyone's opinion, Sun Hailong should be slightly stronger than Li Fuchen. After all, Li Fuchen was only at the 8th level of the Earth Realm and was 1 level lower than Sun Hailong. As of now, Li Fuchen had yet to activate a 4-star secret technique. It was possible that he had yet to cultivate a 4-star secret technique, or the 4-star secret technique's maturity was still too low and couldn't be put to use. Li Fuchen, you aren't a match for me. Sun Hailong's right hand was wielding a metal rod that was surrounded by green flames. His chi presence was rising and gave off an invincible and tyrannical demeanor. Li Fuchen sized up Sun Hailong. Sun Hailong's cultivation technique was obviously a blazing heat cultivation technique, and it was at a rather high rank. It should be at the peak state of the 15th rank. The peak state of the 15th rank shouldn't be underestimated. In fact, most of the people here were at the 14th or 15th rank. Sword maniac Li Xiangru was at the 15th rank. There might not even be 10 people who could cultivate a mystic class peak tier cultivation technique to the 16th rank. I will know after a try. With the 16th rank of the true Inferno technique circulating, Li Fuchen's chi presence was also rising. The black light sword in his hand was emitting a scarlet-red sword dipper and a threatening sword intent. 16th rank. Sun Hailong's eyes contracted. With the 16th rank of the mystic class peak tier cultivation technique, Li Fuchen's combat cultivation wasn't inferior to him. 16th rank of the cultivation technique? Everyone was either astonished or envious. To be able to cultivate a mystic class peak tier cultivation technique to the 16th rank at the age of 20, such perception was extremely astounding and was even superior to elite prodigies. It had a profound meaning. To reach the 16th rank at the age of 20, it was possible to reach the 17th or 18th rank in a few more years. The number 1 cultivation technique rank, Wind Snow Fairy Su Lin, was only at the 16th rank during the Stars ranking tournament 3 years ago. Back then, she was already over 20 years old. Could it be that this lad has an exceptional talent for cultivation? Outside of the Heaven Dipper Great Array, plenty of Reincarnation Realm experts were guessing. So what if you cultivate a mystic class peak tier cultivation technique to the 16th rank? Blazing Flame True Spirit, activate. Wind Fire Rod Art. Sun Hailong roared and activated the 4-star secret technique, the Flame True Spirit. The Flame True Spirit was not a true chi transformation secret technique or a true chi explosion secret technique, but a true chi transformation secret technique. Behind Sun Hailong, a 3-meter-tall illusory flame appeared. The illusory flame merged with Sun Hailong, and boundless flame energy poured into Sun Hailong's body, causing his aura to rise once again. The azure flames on the iron rod burned fiercely, looking like a 10 times larger torch. Taking a deep breath, Sun Hailong swung his iron rod. The surging blazing qi expanded and turned into a giant flame whirlpool that blasted at Li Fuchen. It is somewhat similar to the rotating flow sword art. However, it is several times more overbearing than the rotating flow sword art. Li Fuchen immediately saw the essence of the wind-fire rod style. Horn of the Flame Devil, break. Li Fuchen's Blaze Devil Sword intent wasn't at the initial stage, nor was it at the matured stage. It was at the perfection stage, and the Horn of the Blaze Devil was the finishing move of the Blaze Devil Sword art. The profound light sword abruptly pierced out, and the glaring red light was like a red horn, forcibly piercing into the flame vortex, and then stirring it for a bit. Danger! When the wind-fire rod style was broken, Sun Hailong was shocked and quickly brandished his rod to block. Boom! A huge force transmitted over, causing Sun Hailong's palm to bleed and his eyes to see stars. Li Fuchen's sword attack was extremely concentrated, and it was concentrated at a single point. The force that came from it was extremely horrific. Sun Hailong felt that all the strength in his body had vanished, even his qi had been scattered. You have lost. Li Fuchen's profound light sword was pointed at Sun Hailong's throat. Sun Hailong's lips twitched and had an appalled expression. One sword? He couldn't even block a single sword. It was too humiliating. But in comparison, he was more fearful of Li Fuchen's ability. Li Fuchen's sword move was simply unbelievably perfect. They were both mystic-class high-tier martial arts, but his wind-fire rod style was far inferior to Li Fuchen. The difference was like the clouds and mud. Sun Hailong's defeat was a little unexpected. After all, Li Fuchen only executed one sword move. He is actually so strong. Lu Wuhuang and Yuan Tian were in despair. They realized that Li Fuchen's improvement speed was several times faster than them. As long as Li Fuchen didn't die, they wouldn't be able to catch up. Li Fuchen's ability surprised Ouyang Wenyan and Zhao Wujing. As of now, Li Fuchen had yet to activate the 4-star secret technique, Pure Yang Dipper Qi. If he activated the Pure Yang Dipper Qi, it was imaginable how strong he would be. After defeating Sun Hailong, Li Fuchen achieved 10 consecutive victories. The Heaven Dipper battle qi that was lingering around the Heaven Dipper stone pillar was getting more and more like a giant snake. In the 580th match, Li Fuchen went against Yan Qingwu. Yan Qingwu didn't intend to concede and immediately launched an intense attack. Flying Swallow Cleave. Her figure was fleeting and her saber art was extremely fast. The curved saber in Yan Qingwu's hand seemed to have a spirit of its own. Every saber was like a swallow flying at Li Fuchen. The trajectory of the saber was unconstrained and extremely agile. Li Fuchen had a calm expression as he slashed with the profound light sword. Blaze Devil Killer Shadow. This sword move was as though it was made by the heavens, as though it was waiting for Yan Qingwu. There was a burst of scarlet light, and on the round stage, a layer of scarlet cover enveloped Yan Qingwu. In an instant, Yan Qingwu suffered dozens of slashes from the sword dipper. After barely blocking half of the sword dipper slashes, Yan Qingwu couldn't block the rest of the slashes. Sword wounds appeared on her body while fresh blood sprayed out. Outside of the Heaven Dipper Great Array, the Heaven Fiend sect patriarch, Li Xietian had a gloomy expression. The Yan clan patriarch, Yan Baiyin, didn't have a good expression either. Yan Qingwu had the 6-star bone frame and should be enjoying supreme glory. But she was ultimately too young. If she was given 2 more years, Li Fuchen wouldn't be a match for her. A momentary loss doesn't mean anything. The next tournament shall be Qingwu's era. Yan Baiyin thought to himself. After defeating Yan Qingwu, Li Fuchen won another 3 consecutive matches and reached 14 consecutive victories. As of now, there were only over 20 individuals who maintained 14 consecutive victories. Apart from Yan Qingwu, the rest of the elite prodigies were among them. On the 799th match, Li Fuchen was going against Xiahou Shi. Xiahou Shi had always treated Li Fuchen as his hunting target, but right now, he didn't have any confidence. The strength that Li Fuchen displayed was much stronger than he imagined. If Li Fuchen had already gone all out, Xiahou Shi might still have some confidence. But if Li Fuchen still had some tricks up his sleeves, then Xiahou Shi wasn't confident at all. A prey will always be a prey. What is there to fear? Xiahou Shi licked his lips and with a flash, he appeared in front of Li Fuchen. Boom! His cultivation burst out and his 4-star secret technique burst out. Xiahou Shi blasted a fist at Li Fuchen. A vigorous and sinister dragon-shaped chi force swam around. Mystic class high-tier fist art. Yellow Dragon Fist. Chapter 298. It is time to expose something else. In fact, Li Fuchen still had absolute confidence that he could defeat Xiahou Shi without using the 4-star secret technique. But to do so, he would have to execute the Blaze Devil Sword art to the extremity and push his awareness to a higher rank. It would be too shocking. He had to leave some leeway in everything so that no one could see through him. With the 4-star secret technique, Pure Yang Dipper Chi activated, the violent true Inferno Chi within Li Fuchen's body surged and transformed into Pure Yang Dipper Chi. In an instant, Li Fuchen's body burst out with a pure and tyrannical bright yellow radiance. Even the black light sword in his hand was coated with a layer of bright yellow radiance, as though it was a large yellow crystal sword. Boom! When the sword was brandished, the air shook. Half of the round stage was filled with bright yellow radiance, as though a sun was bursting out. 4-star secret technique? Xiahou Shi was flabbergasted as he was sent flying while blood sprayed all over the place. A subcompletion rank 4-star secret technique was equivalent to a completion rank 3-star secret technique. Therefore, there was a huge difference between a 4-star secret technique and a 3-star secret technique. After using the 4-star secret technique, Li Fuchen's combat cultivation rose sharply. How could Xiahou Shi be a match for him? Elite prodigy. After this battle, Li Fuchen will be considered an elite prodigy. As Li Fuchen defeated Xiahou Shi in a single blade, most of the people were convinced. They had no choice but to be convinced. Xiahou Shi was a heaven-defying 5-star bone frame but couldn't even block a single blade from Li Fuchen. If one wasn't an elite prodigy, who else could do it? After all, Li Fuchen was also a rising star and was only 20 years old, which was slightly younger than Xiahou Shi. What a disgrace! Young Master Daolin, Xiahou Chuan had a cold expression. Clans and sects were different. As the strongest clan in the East Unicorn continent, the Daolin clan's descendants valued their bloodline's glory. In Xiahou Chuan's opinion, Xiahou Shi didn't just disgrace the Daolin clan, he also disgraced the Daolin bloodline's glory. This is the secret technique he obtained? Su Muyu frowned. Her intuition told her that the secret technique Li Fuchen obtained in the tomb wasn't the one he was executing now. It should be stronger and more horrific. In terms of pure perception, Su Muyu believed that she was inferior to Li Fuchen. Hence, since she had cultivated the 6-star secret technique, Qi Gathering Dipper, to the Scarlet Dipper rank, Li Fuchen should have a greater improvement. I don't know what he's aiming for. If Su Muyu knew that Li Fuchen was aiming for the top few rankings, then she would roughly know how many trump cards Li Fuchen was hiding. 16 consecutive victories, 17 consecutive victories. Unknowingly, Li Fuchen had already won 20 consecutive matches. Hiss hiss hiss. The Heavenly Dipper battle chi coiling around the Heavenly Dipper stone pillar finally transformed into a giant yellow snake. The giant snake slithered around the Heavenly Dipper stone pillar while hissing. In the 1100th match, Rain and young Master Heavenly Star, Murong Di, faced off. This was the most heavyweight battle since the start of the Stars ranking tournament. This was a battle between the fairy and the young master. Everyone stared unblinkingly at the two people on the round platform. Su Muyu is only 20 years old this year, while Murong Di is already 23 years old. He's at a disadvantage. The Stars ranking tournament is based on strength and not age. It is normal for her to suffer some losses. Let's see how many moves Rain can withstand from Murong Di. No one believed that Rain was Murong Di's opponent. Both of them were 6-star bone frames and were elite prodigies. It was ridiculous for them to have an additional 3 years of cultivation time. In terms of being at a disadvantage, no one was at a disadvantage more than Yan Qingwu. At the age of 18, she had already broken the record for the youngest participant in the Stars ranking tournament. Rain, I advise you to admit defeat. You are not a match for me. Murong-di said indifferently. He didn't like meaningless battles. Rain replied, "How would I know if I don't try?" She didn't have any confidence to go against Murong-di, but admitting defeat wasn't her style. She had to at least give it a try. "Since that is the case, I shall grant your wish." Murong-di opened up his iron fan and emitted a boundless chi presence. Swish. With a flash, Murong-di broke through the air and brandished his iron fan in the air. The giant iron fan shadow was like a black and oppressive whirlwind as it engulfed at Rain. Such a ferocious attack. On the opposite Heaven Dipper stone pillar, one of the prodigies lost his balance and was nearly blown away by the pressure from the iron fan shadow. He was overwhelmed with shock. This was just the aftermath of the attack. If it was a direct confrontation, he would probably be severely injured in an instant. No wonder she is a 6-star bone frame. Li Fuchen raised his brows. It was extremely difficult for a 5-star bone frame to be comparable to a 6-star bone frame. The so-called heaven-defying 5-star bone frame that could be comparable to a 6-star bone frame was actually just a superficial quality. It was still unknown if the 5-star bone frame was truly comparable to a 6-star bone frame. Of course, he was an exception. With the blue soul spirit, his perception was enough to look down on all 6-star bone frames. His cultivation talent was slightly lacking, but with his cultivation technique rank to compensate, it wasn't too far off. 60% ability or 70% ability. Rain took a deep breath and burst out with her cultivation. Her secret technique, Chi Condensation Dipper, was activated. In an instant, the scythe in her hand was emitting a layer of scarlet light. Brandishing the scythe, Rain clashed with Murong-di. Boom! Violent air currents exploded, and the clothes of everyone on the heavenly dipper stone pillars fluttered in the wind. Those who were closer to the stage lost their balance and needed to circulate their Xianxia in order to stabilize themselves. 1 step, 2 steps, Rain took 3 steps back. Not bad. You are able to block one of my moves. The iron fan in Murong-di's hand was brandished and layers of iron fan shadows enveloped Rain. He too had a 4-star secret technique, but against Rain he didn't need to activate it. After all, be it cultivation or martial arts rank, he was superior to Rain. Red light scythe dance. Rain let out a soft yell and executed her finishing move. Within 30 meters, the scarlet scythe shadows interweaved, as though multiple Rains were brandishing the scythe. Phaseless dipper fan. Murong-di laughed heartily and swung his iron fan again. This time, his chi was extremely concentrated and the iron fan shadow turned into a ray of light. Bang! Rain was sent flying by the fan while blood was seeping out from the corner of her mouth. Murong-di's ability was too strong and his fan art was obviously able to release dipper chi. Within a certain range, dipper chi's power was much stronger than chi. Rain wasn't disappointed after losing to Murong-di. Her ultimate goal this time was to get into the top 10. Her normal goal was to get into the top 20 and she still had a chance later on. The battle between the two elite prodigies was extremely exciting. In everyone's eyes, Rain might have lost in glory as she was 3 years older than Murong-di after all. In the 1400th match, Li Fuchen, who had 25 consecutive victories, encountered a formidable foe. At least in everyone's eyes, it was a formidable foe. His opponent was actually the 17th ranker of the previous star's ranking tournament, Shen Feng. He might not be an elite prodigy, but it wasn't an easy task to be ranked 17th in the previous star's ranking tournament. After 3 years, even a pig would have a significant improvement, let alone Shen Feng, who was only inferior to the elite prodigies. Huff huff huff, on the round stage the chi flow was spreading out in waves. Standing in the center of the round stage, Shen Feng was just like a god of war. The chi presence that burst out from his body was extremely shocking and was even more shocking than Murong-di and Rain. Chapter 299. Shen Feng's strength should be stronger than what Murong-di has displayed. As for how much stronger, I have no idea. One is ranked 17th in the previous star's ranking and the other is the Dark Horse King. I am truly looking forward to it. Everyone discussed animatedly. After defeating Sun Hailong and Xiahou Shi, Li Fuchen's status as the king of dark horses was confirmed. If Li Fuchen could even defeat Chen Feng, it would mean that his ability was enough to compete with elite prodigies. But if he was defeated, it would mean that Li Fuchen's ability would only be in the top 30 or 20 and he wouldn't be able to go any further. Chen Feng's weapon was a sawtooth broadsword with a bloody line on its blade. As Chen Feng poured his true qi into it, the bloody line resembled a blood-colored snake, wriggling slowly. A gloomy and overbearing saber qi pervaded the air. Li Fuchen, receive my first blade. Chen Feng didn't waste any time and executed his saber art. Countless blood threads wrapped around Li Fuchen. Upon closer inspection, they weren't blood threads at all. They were clearly strands of flexible and condensed saber qi. The saber art that Chen Feng cultivated was the high-tier mystic class saber art, the blood thread saber art. When this blood thread saber art was cultivated to its peak, the saber qi would be akin to threads. However, although Chen Feng had comprehended the blood thread saber intent, he had yet to raise the blood thread saber intent to the perfection stage. Hence, his saber qi could not reach the level of blood threads. Activating the 4-star secret technique, Pure Yang Dipper Qi, Li Fuchen suddenly slashed with the black light sword. Fiery devil-killing shadow. The crimson barrier enveloped Chen Feng. Within the barrier was a domain of astral sword qi. Crackle. The blood saber qi scattered, and the red shield was destroyed. Chen Feng frowned. He had basically gone all out and assumed that he would be able to suppress Li Fuchen. Take another slash from me. Chen Feng stomped on the ground and arrived in front of Li Fuchen. The next instant, Chen Feng held the saber with both hands and slashed furiously. Blood veins waterfall. Hua hua hua. The densely packed bloodlines were like a waterfall that poured down at Li Fuchen. This saber was even more concentrated and tyrannical. Every single bloodline had unparalleled slicing and penetrating power that no one could block. 3 or 4 Li Fuchen appeared at the same time, and Li Fuchen instantly dodged this saber. Mystic class mid-tier light body technique intent? Chen Feng had an unsightly expression. Qi cultivation technique intent, light body technique intent, body refinement technique intent. These 3 intents were all extremely difficult to comprehend. Li Fuchen didn't just have a high sword art rank, even his light body technique rank was at such a high level. After dodging Chen Feng's fatal saber, Li Fuchen appeared on Chen Feng's left side. Horn of the Flame Devil. The profound light sword stabbed out abruptly, and a scarlet horn phantom appeared. It was as if a flame devil was using the horn on its head to stab at Chen Feng with astonishing might. Ding. Chen Feng didn't have a light body technique like Li Fuchen and could only twist his body to block with his saber. At this moment, he understood Sun Hailong's helplessness. The power of the flame demon's horn was extremely condensed. All of its power was concentrated on a single point. The instant the blade and the sword came into contact, Chen Feng felt a formless aura penetrating through his body. That was the aura of the flame devil's horn. With blood flowing out of the corner of his mouth, Chen Feng was flung away. Both his arms were trembling uncontrollably, and for a split second, he felt numb. Amazing! Li Fuchen raised his brows. His sword was just like using a hammer to smash a nail. It could easily penetrate a piece of wood, but Chen Feng actually blocked it. Again! Li Fuchen's speed was even faster than Chen Feng's flying speed. He executed the horn of the flame devil again. Ding. This time, Chen Feng vomited a mouthful of fresh blood and the qi in his body was nearly scattered. No! Chen Feng roared with rage and circulated his qi to the extremity. With a ferocious burst, he wanted to blast Li Fuchen away. It was a pity that in the face of the horn of the flame devil, everything would be penetrated. The qi burst out by Chen Feng was instantly split apart. Li Fuchen's sword thrust at Chen Feng for the 3rd time. This time, Chen Feng wasn't able to use his saber to block. The scarlet horn phantom penetrated Chen Feng's chest and lifted him up. His body was in the shape of a prawn. When the scarlet horn phantom vanished, Li Fuchen drifted away and didn't make another move. He won? So quickly and cleanly? Everyone was astonished. They thought it was going to be a bitter battle, but it ended so quickly. It gave people a feeling of loud thunder and small raindrops. Li Fuchen's light body technique is too incredible, and his sword move is also very horrific. Once he has the upper hand, Chen Feng has no way to reverse the situation. Yes, in the case of similar strength, whoever has a powerful light body technique will win. Chen Feng's only weakness is his light body technique. Of course, this is compared to the elite group of people. Compared to us, his light body technique isn't weak at all. The previous battle with Xiahou Shi established Li Fuchen's identity as an elite prodigy and the king of dark horses. The battle with Chen Feng established Li Fuchen's identity as an elite giant. To be listed in the stars ranking was considered a young giant, but only the top 20 were considered elite giants. It was obvious that Li Fuchen already had the strength of the top 20, and it wasn't much worse. Somewhat interesting. Young Master Dragon Sword, Qiyuye's eyes flashed with a strange light. Li Fuchen's strength was somewhat out of his expectations. He thought that Li Fuchen was just an ant. From the looks of it, Li Fuchen was stronger than an ant and was able to exchange moves with him. In order to become an expert, one must not be weak in any aspect. Chen Feng's light body technique is a little weak. Murong Di let out a faint smile and opened up the iron fan in his hand, gently fanning the wind. Somewhat interesting. Wind Snow Fairy looked at Li Fuchen too. She was blessed by the heavens when it came to cultivating icy cold cultivation techniques. Even the three king stars cultivation techniques weren't comparable to her. Li Fuchen was the only one with a cultivation technique innate talent that wasn't inferior to her. After defeating Chen Feng, Li Fuchen's battle record was at 26 wins. The Heaven Dipper battle Qi in the form of a giant snake had a transformation again. Its body was much thicker and more powerful. It was indistinctly transforming from a giant snake into a giant python, while the hissing sound was much louder. In the 1430th match, Xiahou Chuan and Chen Feng went against each other. Xiahou Chuan was known as Young Master Dolin and possessed a heaven-defying 5-star bone frame. In the previous stars ranking tournament, he had the same ranking as Wind Snow Fairy, Su Lin. The two of them were tied at 15th place. His strength was world-shaking, and in this year's stars ranking tournament, he was qualified to compete for the top 5. A single palm strike. A single palm strike was all it took to send Chen Feng flying. Chen Feng's strength was formidable and was probably 30% stronger than Su Muyu. But when facing Xiahou Chuan, he couldn't even withstand a single palm strike. During the battle with Li Fuchen, he had at least received a few sword moves. Chen Feng had an ashen expression and his confidence seemed to have crumbled. This year's stars ranking tournament was a huge blow to him. Before the tournament, he was extremely confident and wanted to make it to the top 10. But now, he was defeated miserably by Li Fuchen and was sent flying by a single palm strike from Xiahou Chuan. He was doubting if he had made any progress during the past 3 years. Such strength. No wonder he is one of the 6 young masters, Young Master Dolin. Li Fuchen used 3 sword moves to defeat Chen Feng, but Xiahou Chuan only used a single palm strike. Li Fuchen might have the potential of an elite prodigy, but he is still too inexperienced. Apart from Su Muyu and Yan Qingwu, he isn't strong enough. And that makes sense. On the Heaven Dipper stone pillars, there were plenty of people conversing. After sending Chen Feng flying, Xiahou Chuan looked at Li Fuchen with an indifferent gaze that had a trace of disdain. Seeing this scene, Murong Di laughed and muttered to himself, "It is already praiseworthy to be able to defeat Chen Feng. It is a pity that in this tournament, it isn't your turn to shine. This tournament belongs to us." Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.